to delete all of the files and folders. You click on the top one, the client one up there, hold down Shift, click on the bottom one, and then press Control, click, and click Delete. And click Yes to all. It should delete everything in that folder. And you should now have a blank slate to work from. The first thing we're going to do is in the terminal, we're going to touch an index.html page. We're going to touch a style.css page. These are the two files we're going to need for the time being. Those two commands down here create files. And so we're creating an index.html file and we're creating a style.css file. Open up that index.html file right there and we're going to add some code to it. We're going to tell it it's an HTML file. We need the head and the body tags. And in the head tag, we're going to put a title. You actually don't really need a lot of this stuff, but I always put it in there anyway. Our title is going to be blog. You can't see the red? You want to make a different view? Cool. Let's change the... Can you see that? Is that a little easier? Yeah. Okay, cool. There's also the other theme editor that's pretty nice. That might be easier for you is this one. Is that better? Or the other one? Other one? Okay. Looks about the same. Yes, no? The black okay? Cool. We're also going to put a link in here. Rel equals style sheet. And we're going to link href, our style.css page. So we can add styles to it. Then we're going to add an h1 here that says blog. Just so we know it works. And I'm going to preview this page to make sure it works. Boom. There we go. Now what I've done here, all I've done is I have a skeleton of my HTML page. I have a head where all the things that go on behind the scenes is. And I've put a title that says blog. I have a link to the style.css file that's right here, which you should also probably open up. And I have a body tag which holds whatever goes on the page. I can also call this like APCSP blog. That's also fine for APCS principles. And in this blog, we're going to hold some posts about our explore, create tasks, or explore and create performance tasks. But we got to make it look nice first. So all we're going to do is we're going to make this look nice. Change the color, change some colors, add a cover page, and make sure that people can click to different pages in our blog. Does that make sense? Yes. So, let's go ahead and get that started. The first thing we want to do is we want to add some styles to our page to make sure the styles work. So in the style.css, I'm going to select the whole body, and I'm going to give it a background of like light gray, just to make sure that works. Okay, it does. I always do that as like a sanity check. Does this work? Because that's the most important thing you can do. Just make sure it works. Now you don't actually need that because I'm going to get rid of it. I'm just going to give this a margin of 0 so we can start at basically nothing. Margin of 0, just because usually the body starts with a little bit of space around the whole thing. A little margin of 0. And so by doing this, we make sure that everything gets pushed up against the walls of our HTML page. And so right now our page should look something like very simple like this, which isn't very nice, but we're going to style it up real quick. To do that, we need to add some divs. And so I'm going to divide the page up a little bit. I'm going to create a div here. And I'm going to call this a class equals, we're going to call this, let's call this cover picture, cover. Because it's going to hold the cover of our APCSP blog. And then I'm going to create another div right below that with the class equals main for the main part of our page. And then one more div below that with the class equals footer for the footer section of our page. Now by doing this, by creating 3 sections, nothing on here changes, but it's going to make it much easier for us to actually style the page in a second. And so I'm going to pause this for a second. I'm going to copy and paste all this into Slack so you have it. So if you need to get caught up, let me know. Cool? Now the next thing we want to do is we want to add some styles to the cover section, the main section, and the footer section. We'll actually leave the footer section out for a little bit. Let's just do the cover section first. And so we'll say .cover. We'll give it a height of 50 view height and a background of gray. Actually, we're going to put a background image in there in a second, but just to make sure this works, give it a background of gray. And let's make sure the H1 inside there has no margin either, so that it doesn't make that space at the top. Now yours should look something like this. And in a big screen, it'll look something like that. But we're going to change that in a second. Now this 50 VH stands for view height. Whatever the height of the screen is, that is 50% of it. If you don't like that, you can set it to like 40 view height, or 30, or 20, or 10. I think 40 is probably a good number to start with. But you can put whatever you want there. I'm going to keep it at 50 for now. You're also probably going to want to pick some custom styles for this, which I'm going to let you do later. But I want you just to follow along with me for the time being. Now, once you have this section down, we're going to give the cover a few extra styles that are going to make it look nicer. We're going to make it display flex. If you remember when we did Flexbox Froggy last year, we learned how to move things around inside our divs using Flexbox. And so what Flexbox Froggy makes really easy is to move this to the center of this section. I want this H1 to be in the center, so I'm going to display it flex. I'm going to say justify content in the center so that it moves it in the center like that, which will just move it to right there. And then I align item center also, which moves it to the direct center of the section. So it looks like that. I'm also going to make the H1 have a color of white and have a font size of, let's say, 2.8 rem, which will make it big. So it looks like, save that, refresh. Nope, needs to be bigger. Okay, 3.8 rem. Bigger still, 4.5 rem. Okay, that looks all right. I'm comfy with that. If you want to make yours bigger, you can. We're also going to change the background of this in a second, so I know it doesn't look perfect yet. Now, usually what I do, if I have a blog or something like that, put a little cover photo there. Sort of the way Facebook does this. A little cover photo. If you want to have this background have its own cover photo, you should probably find a photo first. So I'm going to go search on Google, and I'm going to find some kind of like texture, dark texture background. Now let's see if I can find one. Cool, some dark textures. You could pick something else. You can pick whatever you want. Maybe I'm going to go with some space. Space background. You can Google some nice space images if you want. Or you could pick a computer-esque thing. I don't care. Whatever style you like. Pick something that floats your boat. I'm going to go with, ooh, I like this one. I'm going with this free pick one right here. The problem is, the one thing you want to check is that you probably want it to be pretty big. 338 by 338 is not very big. And so what happens if I choose this one, for instance, and I click Open Image in New Tab and grab that link right there, is if I use this image, which you can do by saying background, instead of being hashtag CCC, you could say URL, and then you put the URL in there. And it'll put that image as your background image. The problem is, if I look at this, actually that looks okay. That looks pretty nice, all things considered. Here's the code. You just say background, URL, and then in parentheses, you put the link to whatever image you're choosing. Now you can give the background some specific styles. You can say like background size, cover, or like 100%, 100%. You can do whatever you want to make it look however you want. So it'll just change how much of it is covered, but I'm actually just gonna leave that out for now because it looks pretty good like this. The problem is it's repeating. Do you see how it repeats itself a bunch of times? There's one of it here, one of it here, one of it here. It repeats, this image repeats 3 times. I don't know if you can tell. Can you see that? If you can't tell, you can also just leave it like this, but if you notice there's a line right here where this image is separated 3 times. And if you say like background repeat, no repeat, it won't repeat itself. So it'll look something like this, where it only takes up exactly how big the picture is. Now, if you want it to cover the whole thing and no repeat, it'll look something like that. But that doesn't look very good. So you can say like 100, 120. You can play around with these percentages to get the exact right one you want. I'm going to keep it like that because that looks all right to me. Does anyone have any questions about what I've done so far? We all okay with this? Lovely. Now the next thing we want to do is let's add some nice fonts in here. Let's get our own font for this APCSP blog. To get your own font, go to Google Fonts. Google Fonts. And Google Fonts has all different kinds of nice fonts. You can choose from a bunch of them. And the way you get one of these fonts in there, and I'm just going to pick, I don't know, the first one. Tell me when to stop. When you see one you like, let me know. Stop? All right, which one do you like? This one? Montserrat? So you click it like this. You click that plus sign. And it'll give you an option down there. So pick whichever one you want. Click that plus sign. And it'll open up this little section down here. Pop that open and click the one that says import. What it'll do is it'll give you this little import URL. Copy that. If you copy that, you can put it at the very top of your CSS file, like this, right there. You put the import URL right there, and then you can tell the body to use that font. Font, family, Montserrat. And now all the fonts will have the Montserrat font. They'll look like this. So you pick whichever font you want, you pick whichever background you want, and make yours look something like this. Take a few seconds, style it up however you want. We'll come back in a minute.